the country's most prolific serial killers.
Jeffrey Dahmer was captured in a West Side apartment building where investigators also found barrels of evidence. Rebecca Clough explains.
In the chilling crime history, a disturbing subset stands out: child serial criminals who, shockingly, confess their heinous acts on camera. These deeply unsettling cases challenge our understanding of innocence and delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Join us on a spine-tingling journey as we unravel the shocking stories of 10 young individuals whose confessions sent shivers down the spines of investigators and left a haunting mark on the world of true crime. Number 1. Jeffrey Dahmer. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer, an American child serial killer and transgressor, is as fascinating as he is terrifying. Dahmer, born on May 21, 1960, developed a dark personality between 1978 and 1991, when he committed 17 horrifying assassinations, leaving a bloody trail in his wake. His horrific methods included cannibalism, aggression, dismemberment, and necrophilia. Despite a seemingly normal childhood, Dahmer's descent into darkness began as he grew older. He withdrew from society, losing interest in hobbies and social interactions, turning to macabre pastimes like dissecting animal carcasses and heavy drinking. Graduating in 1978, 3 weeks later, he committed his first killing, taking advantage of his parents' divorce and a lonely summer. His victim, Stephen Hicks, met a horrifying fate simply because Dahmer wanted him to stay. After a brief stint in college and a troubled period in the Army, where he served as a combat medic, Dahmer's drinking problem persisted. He eventually moved to Wisconsin, where his life turned even darker. By 1985, he frequented gay bathhouses, assaulting intoxicated men with impunity, despite a couple of arrests. The killings began with his second victim, Stephen Tuomi, in 1987, and escalated in brutality over the years. Dahmer's disturbing acts with his victims' corpses reached a horrifying peak, including preserving skulls and genitals for display and consumption. He continued his reign of terror, taking 4 lives in 1990 and 8 more in 1991. By the summer of 1991, Dahmer was killing at an alarming rate, driven by a twisted desire to turn his victims into zombies. Neighbors began to notice strange occurrences and foul odors from his apartment, but he skillfully avoided suspicion until a narrow escape with the police. The turning point came when he lured Tracy Edwards into his home in July 1991, but Edwards managed to escape and alert the authorities. Police discovered a house of horrors, severed heads in the refrigerator, photographs of victims, and a chilling altar made of human skulls. Dahmer's arrest led to a shocking confession and the revelation of the gruesome details of his crimes. A horrific trial resulted in the conviction of legendary serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer on 15 charges. He received 15 life sentences for a total of 957 years in jail. He eventually entered a plea and admitted to taking the life of Stephen Hicks, his first victim, for which he was given an extra life term. Dahmer's existence in jail was characterized by regret and a desire to take life. He identified as a born-again Christian after turning to Christianity for consolation. But he endured 2 vicious attacks by fellow prisoners, the first of which left him with minor injuries and the second of which killed him on November 28, 1994 in a prison shower. Number 2. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. In a shocking turn of events, notorious psychopath Ian Brady revealed horrifying details about his crime rampage moments before he passed away. He claimed that he manipulated or brainwashed his accomplice, Myra Hindley, into their heinous deeds and was refuted. Instead, he saw their chance meeting as a pivotal moment in his life. In an eerie account, Dr. Alan Cately, a former RE teacher who spent more time with Brady than anyone else during his prison stint, described Brady's meeting with Hindley as an electrifying moment reminiscent of Frankenstein's laboratory. Brady explained that an intangible force seemed to possess them when they were together, creating an intoxicating, unified power beyond their individual selves. Their relationship, he claimed, was more like that of a teacher and student, with open discussions and shared ideologies. Brady even described Hindley as his soulmate. Adding to the horrors, Brady revealed that Hindley drew blood from their first victim, 16-year-old Pauline Reed. They both subjected her to torture. In a final, audacious act, Brady expressed his desire for a gangland-style funeral, seeking notoriety akin to the Cray twins upon his death. He demanded that his ashes be interred on the moors where he and Hindley discarded their victims' bodies. However, these deluded man's plans were thwarted as his cremation took place in secret, attended only by a select few officials, and his remains were disposed of near the Ashworth Security Hospital where he breathed his last. In a heart-wrenching twist, it was revealed that police made one last desperate plea to Brady on his deathbed, seeking information about the location of 12-year-old Keith Bennett, the only Moors killing victim never recovered. Despite these efforts, the location of Keith's remains a mystery. Coroner Christopher Sumner, presiding over the inquest into Brady's death, made it clear that Brady's ashes would not desecrate Saddleworth Moor, stating, "I think it would be offensive." Brady's victims' families are devastated by the final act of cruelty from a twisted man. Brady had planned his funeral for years, but his send-off remains secret. The search for closure continues, with Brady facing his own brand of justice, and the surviving family members continue to search for closure. Number 3. Ted Bundy. 30 years ago today, Ted Bundy, who arguably holds the title of Utah's most infamous killer, met his end in a Florida prison. Yet, even after all this time, the mysteries from Bundy's dark chapter in Utah and the crimes he confessed to remain shrouded in enigma. While Bundy did admit to taking 8 lives in Utah and a staggering total of 30 before his execution, it soon became evident that his confessions were riddled with deception. Many began questioning the authenticity of his final interviews, as the information he provided led investigators down fruitless paths. One such discussion occurred 2 days before his execution, when he met with Dennis Couch of the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. Over the course of 90 minutes, Couch calmly and persistently sought information to locate the bodies of Bundy's victims. Following this meeting, he claimed to have taken 8 lives in Utah, but authorities swiftly ruled out 3 of these confessions. There were also disappearances that Bundy was suspected of, but he denied involvement. Police believed Bundy had taken the lives of Melissa Smith, Laura Ann Aim, Nancy Wilcox, Debbie Kent, and Susan Curtis, all of whom vanished between October 1974 and June 1975. Tragically, only the remains of Smith and Amy were ever recovered. Bundy's ability to provide precise information was hampered by the passage of nearly 15 years since the crimes. He even admitted during his conversation with Couch that his memory wasn't as sharp as it once was. Yet, some speculate that this could have been his final act of defiance against law enforcement. Ann Rule, the author of The Stranger Beside Me, a book about Bundy, suggested that he deliberately misled Utah police about the locations of victims' bodies, seeing it as a way to taunt them one last time. Despite his confessions, Ted Bundy was never tried or convicted for any killing in Utah. He had only one case in Utah court records, a 1976 conviction for second-degree aggravated kidnapping. After this, Bundy continued his criminal spree, facing killing charges in Colorado and ultimately ending up in Florida, where he was convicted of taking the life of a 12-year-old girl and 2 others, leading to his death sentence in 1979. In his final days, Bundy met with various investigators, an event that some reports dubbed the Bundy Summit. These conversations were meticulously recorded. During his meeting with Couch in 1989, Bundy's details were vague, and he seemed evasive about the specifics of his crimes and the locations of the victims' remains. As the meeting progressed, Bundy appeared increasingly exhausted and defeated. When asked how many people he had killed in Utah, he didn't provide a clear answer but implied it was more than what was known to Utah police. In the end, Bundy's cautionary tale lives on, with Netflix releasing a docuseries and a movie starring Zac Efron as Bundy, coinciding with the 30th anniversary of his execution. Yet one thing remains certain: Ted Bundy likely took the truth of his crimes to the grave with him. Number 4. Luis Alfredo Garavito. Meet Luis Alfredo Garavito, a controversial guy who is considered among history's most infamous serial killers. Nearly 190 defenseless kids, most of whom are between the ages of 8 and 16, fell victim to this vicious man. He was given more than 50 severe prison terms for his horrible actions. Garavito's nefarious strategies included disguising himself as a beggar or a monk, luring disadvantaged kids with cash and sodas to torture and attack them later on before taking their lives. However, Colombian law limits prison sentences to a maximum of 40 years and allows for early release based on good behavior after serving more than half of the sentence. Shockingly, a recent revelation on the television program Los Informants disclosed that the National Prison Institute had actually requested provisional release for Garavito, citing his exemplary behavior behind bars. Fortunately, a judge denied this request, citing Garavito's failure to pay his victims a fine of approximately $41,500. Garavito's horrifying journey began in April 1999 when he was arrested on an attempted murder charge. However, during the investigation, when asked about his involvement in the deaths of 114 children whose bodies were discovered in 59 Colombian towns since 1994, Garavito shockingly admitted to the gruesome crimes and pleaded for forgiveness. Subsequently, he confessed to an additional 26 deaths. In a chilling videotaped confession broadcast on Colombian television news, Garavito begged for forgiveness, saying, "I ask you to pardon me for all I have done, and all I will confess. Yes, I killed them, and many others." In a disturbing detail, it was revealed that Garavito kept a tally of his victims in a battered notebook, which he showed to a judge and psychologist. Across the creased pages were scrawled 140 lines, one for each victim. Later, while incarcerated, he admitted to about 50 more. Reports suggest that Garavito's troubled upbringing may have influenced his descent into darkness. He claimed to be the eldest of 7 children. At 16, he left home and worked various jobs, from a store clerk to a street vendor selling religious icons and prayer cards. Prosecutors revealed that Garavito preyed on his victims on the streets, gaining their trust with soft drinks and money as gifts, only later to betray them in the most horrific manner imaginable. In response to the public outcry, the Prison Institute stated on Monday, asserting their actions were in conformance with legal postulates when they submitted the documents to the judge. The debate over Garavito's fate continues to grip Colombia as the nation grapples with the shocking possibility of his early release. Number 5. Dennis Nielsen. Dennis Nielsen, the chilling architect of a gruesome killing spree in the late 70s, took center stage in an ITV police drama that garnered David Tennant an International Emmy in 2020. But there's more to this dark tale than meets the eye. With a riveting 3-part BBC Two documentary diving into one of the most extensive investigations in Metropolitan Police history, it's time to unravel the twisted saga of Dennis Nielsen. From his troubled upbringing in Aberdeenshire to a stint in the British Army that fueled disturbing fantasies, Nielsen's life was a haunting journey. Born on November 23, 1945, to a Scottish mother and a Norwegian soldier father, his parents' split led him to be primarily raised by his maternal grandparents. He was especially close to his grandfather, but tragedy struck when his grandfather died from a heart attack while fishing. Nielsen credited this moment as when he began to withdraw from society. During his early teenage years, Nielsen grappled with his sexuality, unsure and ashamed. His brother taunted him about being gay, exacerbating his inner turmoil. Seeking an escape from his rural upbringing, Nielsen joined the Army Cadet Force at age 14 and later enlisted for 9 years of service in September 1961. He concealed his orientation from his colleagues, but a particular incident in West Germany triggered disturbing fantasies involving young, passive, unconscious, or deceased male partners. After an 11-year military career, Nielsen joined the Metropolitan Police and moved to London for training in 1973. Loneliness plagued him as he longed for the companionship he had grown accustomed to in the Army. He turned to alcohol and frequented gay bars. A year later, he left the police and began working as a civil servant in the job center. 3 years before his killing spree, Nielsen and his then-partner, David Gallichan, moved into a flat at 195 Melrose Avenue. After a year and several arguments, Gallichan left Nielsen, leaving him to live solitary until 1978, when the bloodshed began. Between 1978 and 1983, Dennis Nielsen embarked on a horrifying killing spree, claiming the lives of a minimum of 12 men and boys, with suspicions of 7 more. His first victim, 14-year-old Stephen Holmes, was strangled and drowned before being hidden under the floorboards for 8 months and later burned on a bonfire. Nilsen attempted to attack others, like Hong Kong student Andrew Ho and Canadian student Kenneth Ockenden, both lured under false pretenses and strangled to death. His modus operandi involved strangulation, drowning, and disturbing post-mortem rituals. As his flat filled with decomposing bodies, Nilsen decided to burn them on another bonfire in his garden, masking the smell by melting a car tire. He moved to 23 Cranley Gardens and continued his brutal acts, even attempting to kill Carl Stoddard in 1982. In 1983, he took the life of 20-year-old Stephen Sinclair, dissecting his body and storing dismembered parts. Police discovered a body stored in plastic bags, and Nilsen confessed to killing 16 victims since 1978. He received a life sentence with 25 years to serve. Number 6. Israel Keyes. A serial criminal, Israel Keyes was a twisted joy in ending lives. He claimed the lives of at least 3 innocent souls during his reign of terror in the early 2010 SS. Keyes' true calling lay in the shadows, as he wore multiple masks, including being a U.S. Army veteran, father, and business owner. His descent into darkness escalated when his family left the faith and embraced a white supremacist ideology. Keyes' crimes ranged from Washington to Florida, with suspected crimes in multiple states. Keyes selected random people all throughout the United States to evade discovery months before committing a specific crime. He particularly sought out campsites and remote spots. He said that he only used weapons when necessary and favored strangling since it gave him joy to see victims lose consciousness during the fight. He said he didn't victimize youngsters or their parents because he was afraid his daughter would find out about him and his misdeeds. However, police and FBI agents were skeptical of Keyes' allegation and accused him of taking the lives of numerous teens and toddlers. The death of Samantha Koenig serves as a chilling reminder of Keyes' malevolence. He lured her from a coffee shop, bound her, and subjected her to unspeakable horrors before ending her life. Keyes resumed his everyday life, waking his daughter for school with the victim's lifeless body nearby. Keyes' twisted game continued when he sent a ransom note, but his capture was imminent. A routine traffic stop revealed the sinister contents of his car, leading to his arrest. Keyes offered no remorse, confessing to his heinous acts with a cold, "Why not?" addiction to the thrill of killing. Israel Keyes serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness lurking beneath the facade of normalcy and a stark warning of the evil that can hide in plain sight. Number 7. Anthony Kirkland. March 7, 2009. Cincinnati, OH, a date etched in infamy. The sun rose on a day filled with youthful vigor as 13-year-old Esme Kenny embarked on her first solo jog around the Winton Hills Reservoir. Little did she know that this seemingly ordinary day would spiral into a nightmarish saga that would haunt the city for years. Hours passed, and Esme failed to return home. Panic seized her family, prompting a frantic call to the police. The day's tranquility morphed into a relentless hunt for answers as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving Esme seemingly to vanish. But amid the uncertainty, a chilling discovery awaited. Shrouded in ominous silence, a man was found seated against a tree. This man was Anthony Kirkland, a 40-year-old with a dark past and an active warrant for his arrest. Kirkland's criminal history was a canvas painted in shades of horror. His most heinous act, the brutal killing of his girlfriend Leola Douglas in 1987, sent shockwaves through the community. He had strangled her, doused her in lighter fluid, and set her ablaze, all because she rejected his advances. Astonishingly, Kirkland served only 16 years in prison for this monstrous act, foreshadowing the darkness yet to unfold. Post-release, Kirkland continued to wreak havoc, with allegations of physical violence and warnings to harm his own infant son during a SWAT standoff. His sentences were a mere slap on the wrist for the magnitude of his transgressions. Prompted by an undisclosed fear, an order of protection sought to shield his potential victims. However, Kirkland's sinister intentions surfaced again, leading to his arrest for harming his girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter, earning him a year in prison and the title of a registered transgressor. In October 2008, Kirkland found himself in a halfway home called the Pogue Rehabilitation Center. A violent altercation resulted in his expulsion, but a weekend lapse in communication allowed him to roam unchecked. On March 1st, Kirkland broke into a home, stabbing a man named Frederick Hughes multiple times before fleeing. Anthony Kirkland, a notorious criminal, was apprehended after a series of terrifying events. He confessed to assaulting Esme Kenny, Casonia Crawford, Mary Jo Newton, and Kimya Rawlison, all of whom suffered horrifying fates. Kirkland's bond surpassed $5 million due to his confessions. In March 2010, he faced justice, receiving a death sentence and life behind bars. Despite pleas for leniency and attempts to overturn his sentence, the judge upheld the original ruling. Esme's family urged for Kirkland's death, stating that no living person is safe. Today, Kirkland remains on death row at the Chillicothe Correctional Institution, a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk in society's shadows. Number 8. John Wayne Gacy. Envision a person who could seamlessly morph into Pogo the Clown at neighborhood events, captivating youngsters and winning the respect of his whole community. However, this friendly exterior hid a dark underbelly, and by 1978, John Wayne Gacy had earned the moniker the Killer Clown. In 1964, when Gacy was found guilty of molesting 2 young boys, the first troubling indication emerged. He received legal repercussions and was imprisoned for 18 months. After being freed and divorced, Gacy looked for a new start in Chicago. In the Windy City, Gacy built a flourishing construction empire, rekindled his faith, remarried, and assumed the role of Democratic precinct captain. He hosted lavish block parties and earned a stellar reputation within his community. Friends, neighbors, and even law enforcement held him in high regard. July 1975 marked the disappearance of a teenager employed by Gacy. Desperate parents implored the Chicago police to investigate, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. Regrettably, this was not the only instance concerned parents approached authorities on Gacy's suspicious activities, all in vain. In 1976, Gacy's second divorce seemed to unleash his darkest impulses. Unbeknownst to the world, Gacy embarked on a horrifying spree of violence, claiming the lives of 33 individuals. Most of his victims, a staggering 29, were buried beneath his house, 26 in the crawl space and 3 in other concealed areas. In 1977, a brave young man reported being kidnapped and attacked by John Wayne Gacy. A report was filed, but authorities failed to follow up. Tragically, a 15-year-old boy inquiring about a job with Gacy's construction company met a grisly end the following year. This time, the Des Plaines police finally intervened, unearthing a chilling trail of evidence. Gacy's arrest precipitated a bizarre insanity plea, but justice prevailed. On May 10, 1994, the world watched as the Killer Clown met his fate through a lethal injection, drawing a grim curtain on one of the most horrifying chapters in American criminal history. John Wayne Gacy's chilling transformation from a friendly neighborhood entertainer to a remorseless serial criminal is a harrowing reminder that evil can often lurk where it is least expected. Number 9. Robert Black. In a gripping new book titled There Came a Day, Patricia Cardy, the mother of one of Robert Black's victims, shares her deep regret at never having the chance to face the notorious serial criminal. Her daughter, Jennifer, tragically fell prey to Black's heinous crimes in 1981 when she was 9. Black, who was already serving life sentences for 3 other young girls' bloodshedding, was finally sentenced to 25 years for Jennifer's death in 2011. He passed away in prison at the age of 68 in January 2016. But Patricia Cardy believes there's more to the story. In her book, she unveils her conviction that Black, originally from Grangemouth, Stirlingshire, may have been responsible for up to 12 additional killings. One particularly haunting case is that of 13-year-old Jeanette Tate, who vanished during her paper route in a Devon village on August 19, 1978. Jeanette's body has never been found. Mrs. Cardy's heartfelt desire was to sit down with Black and appeal to him to end the torment of other grieving families. She writes, Robert Black had plunged many defenseless children to early deaths before awaiting his own appointment with death in a prison hospital. For our family, it was an unexpected phone call on the 12th of January 2016. Black had just died in prison of natural causes. Whether we like it or not, God makes his own agenda. She explains, "My heart immediately ached for a family in England whom I knew would suffer more painful consequences of this man's death." In August 1978, 13-year-old Jeanette Tate was abducted. Little did we then know we were to face the same trauma. Patricia Carty shares her rehearsed words for the meeting that never happened in her poignant account, saying, "Robert, you have done little that has been good in your life. This is one good thing only you can do. You alone can tell grieving parents where their daughters' bodies lie. You know where you have hidden them. This is one good thing only you can do. Perhaps the only good thing you will ever do." The unsolved disappearances of other young girls continue to cast a dark shadow. Patricia Carty laments, "All these years, and with every other recorded killing of other little girls since Jennifer, my heart dies another death." The body of Jennifer was discovered, returned to her beloved family, and given a proper, worthy interment. There are yet at least 10, perhaps 12, undiscovered bodies of little girls across the UK, Ireland, and continental Europe, which bear the hallmarks of Robert Black. Due to his death, none shall carry the finality each saddened family has longed to see. The pain endured by these parents is unimaginable, and their quest for answers remains unfulfilled. Patricia Carty concludes, "Neither can there come a day when they will know anything of the final hours of their little children." Number 10. Javed Iqbal. Javed Iqbal Mughal, synonymous with horror, confessed to unimaginable crimes in Pakistan's history. Born in 1961, he became a notorious serial killer and deviant, confessing to the brutal deaths of 100 young boys aged 6 to 16. What set him apart was his chilling method of hiding his crimes, meticulously strangling, dismembering, and dissolving his victims' bodies in acid to erase any trace. The court's decision to punish Iqbal was equally horrific. He would be strangled, sliced into 100 pieces, one for each victim, and placed in the same acid bath that had wiped out his victims, a shocking event witnessed by the victims' parents. This punishment raised doubts about its compliance with human rights. Iqbal's descent into darkness was revealed through a letter to the police and a news editor. Investigators found a gruesome scene inside his home, including blood, strangling chains, victim images, acid vats with human remains, and handwritten lists of victims' names and ages. Driven by perceived mistreatment by Lahore police due to wrongful detention and accusations, Iqbal took his own life when his mother had a heart attack. In 1999, he surrendered, leading to a death sentence and the dissolution of his corpse in acid. This gruesome case provoked outrage and highlighted concerns about Pakistani human rights laws. Iqbal and his accomplice were found dead in jail in October 2001, leaving a legacy of terror and disgust.